are you?
Please help me.
Ma'am, what's going on? Ma'am.
My husband's hurt himself. Hurry.
Okay, where is your husband?
He's in the bed. Please hurry.
Okay, ma'am.
Raynella Dossett Leath is a Knoxville, Tennessee woman serving a life sentence at the Tennessee Prison for Women in Nashville for the 2003 murder of her husband, David Leath. Prosecutors allege that she shot her husband in the head and then attempted to stage his murder as a suicide. Dossett Leath is also a suspect in the 1992 death of her first husband, Ed Dossett, who supposedly died from being trampled by a cattle stampede, but prosecutors now believe that he was killed with a lethal dose of morphine. Early life. Raynella Large was born on October 25, 1948, and raised in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. She attended Oak Ridge High School and graduated in 1966. Raynella became a registered nurse and married her first husband, Ed Dossett, the Knox County District Attorney, in 1970. The couple had 3 children, and the family lived on a farm west of Knoxville, Tennessee. Death of first husband in August 1992. Ed Dossett, who at that time was in the late stages of terminal cancer, was found dead in the couple's corral, allegedly having been trampled by cattle. Despite the medical examiner's suspicions about a double indemnity clause on Ed's life insurance policy, his death was initially ruled to be an agricultural accident by the first medical examiner who autopsied him. Just 6 months after Ed's death, Raynella married her second husband, a retired barber, David Leath. It was not until 2006 that the death of Ed Dossett would be reinvestigated after David Leath's death. Dead of second husband on March 13, 2003, Raynella found the body of her second husband, David Leath, in their bedroom. She called 911 and reported her husband's death as a suicide. The physical evidence suggested that 3 shots were fired from a .38 caliber Colt revolver, but police argued that it was the second shot that killed David Leath. Following his death, authorities reinvestigated the death of Ed Dossett. A new medical examiner revealed that the morphine levels in Ed Dossett's system were so extraordinarily high, it is unlikely that any human could function in an ambulatory manner or continue to live. In 2006, Raynella was charged with administering an overdose of morphine. 2 years later, in 2008, she was charged with first-degree murder in the death of David Leath. Attempted murder charge in 1995, after the death of her first husband, Raynella discovered that Ed Dossett had an affair with another woman that resulted in the birth of a child. Her late husband's mistress was in the middle of a divorce with Steve Walker. The mistress revealed to Mr. Walker that she had an affair with Ed Dossett and that Dossett fathered one of her children. Soon after, Raynella lured Mr. Walker to her farm, where she allegedly opened fire on him until she ran out of bullets. She was charged with attempted murder but plea bargained to a lesser charge. She served 6 years on probation, and her criminal record was expunged. In May 2009, Raynella Dossett Leath went on trial for the murder of her second husband, David. She maintained that her husband's death was a suicide. After hours of jury deliberation, there was no verdict, and the judge declared a hung jury. Raynella's retrial began in January 2010. The prosecutor began his opening statement by playing Raynella's 911 call, then explaining why David's death was murder rather than suicide. The prosecutor said 3 shots were fired and the second shot killed David instantly. He also told the jury David was also drugged with a combination similar to what's used for patients having surgery. In this trial, Raynella's defense did not argue that David's death was in fact a homicide, but that Raynella had an alibi. After a day of deliberation, the jury had not reached a unanimous verdict. However, on January 25, 2010, Raynella Dossett Leath was convicted of first-degree murder and was automatically sentenced to 51 years to life in prison. Immediately following her conviction, the charges relating to her first husband's death were dropped. Following her conviction, Raynella appealed for a new trial based on Judge Richard Baumgartner's judicial misconduct for his drug use. She cited the murder of Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom case, which resulted in all of the defendants' convictions being overturned. Raynella's appeal was denied, Actual crime author Diane Fanning published her Deadly Web 2012 about the Raynella Dossett Leath case. Her case appeared on the Deadly Women episode, An Inconvenient Marriage, snapped June 17, 2012. The jury in Raynella Dossett Leath's retrial found her guilty Monday of first-degree murder in the shooting of her second husband, David Leath. When the verdict was read, Dossett Leath's mouth fell open in shock. She was granted a few minutes with her daughters before being taken into custody. But David Leath's daughter, Cindy Wilkerson, called the verdict a burden off my shoulders. Wilkerson added, "Something needed to be done. He didn't do it. I didn't do it. They chose the right one today." The jury of 9 women and 6 men announced the verdict Monday afternoon, shortly after watching the video again from the crime scene, which was also shown during the trial. The jurors returned to the jury room Monday morning. After deliberating, for about 6 hours on Sunday, they could not reach a verdict. There is an automatic sentence of life with the possibility of parole for Dossett Leath. This is the second time she was tried on accusations of shooting her husband, David Leath, on March 13, 2003, and then making it look like a suicide. The first trial for his death ended with a hung jury in March 2009. After hearing 5 days of witness testimony and arguments by defense and prosecution attorneys, Judge Richard Baumgartner handed the case to the jury. According to testimony by Knox County Medical Examiner Dr. Darinka Miliusnik-Polchin, David Leath was shot 3 times. She said the second shot killed him instantly. A toxicology report showed he was drugged with a combination of drugs similar to what's used for patients having surgery. Dossett Leath's attorney Jim Bell argued throughout the trial that no evidence directly connected her to the shooting. She is also awaiting trial in August for the 1992 death of her first husband, former Knox County District Attorney Ed Dossett. His death was initially believed to be accidental when cattle trampled him, but prosecutors are now trying to prove he died from an intentional overdose of morphine. Tennessee woman accused in trail of death. Few people here know that David Leath's ashes, still in the cardboard box from the crematorium, are kept on a shelf above the clean towels in the suburban barber shop, where he cut hair in the middle chair for almost 40 years. But almost everyone has an opinion on how he ended up there. Mr. Leath, 57, was found dead of a gunshot wound in his bed in 2003. His wife, Raynella Dossett Leath, said it was a suicide, but she was ultimately charged with murder. Her dramatic trial last year gripped the city but ended in a hung jury. Last week she went on trial again. The trail of death in the case, however, does not begin and end with a beloved barber, but winds its way up to the highest levels of law enforcement in this city. There was a fatal car crash, a love child, missing will, and strangest of all, the 1992 death, officially by cattle stampede, of the Knox County prosecutor, Ed Dossett, who happened to be Ms. Dossett Leath's first husband at the time. During the investigation of Mr. Leath's death, prosecutors became convinced that the death of Mr. Dossett was also a homicide, and they have charged Ms. Dossett Leath, 61, in that case as well. That trial will begin in August. In the meantime, Ms. Dossett Leath has become a notorious figure around town. According to a defense attorney, 70% of potential jurors responding to a court questionnaire for the second trial said she was probably guilty. Every quirk in her behavior has been parsed by Knoxville residents for motive, even the fact that she had Mr. Leath's body cremated the day after he died. His body contained unprescribed sedatives and painkillers, according to an autopsy conducted hours earlier. Mr. Leath's friends say he was opposed to cremation and owned a plot in the cemetery where his parents are buried. Her shop, Mr. Leath's former partner, Hoyt Vanisdale, told how Ms. Dossett Leath had asked him to deliver a package to Cynthia Wilkerson, Mr. Leath's daughter from a previous marriage, who now cuts hair at her father's old station. Mr. Vanisdale said she did not tell him the small heavy box contained Mr. Leath's ashes. "Isn't that kind of creepy?" he asked. For years, Raynella Dossett Leath enjoyed an elevated, some say protected, status in Knoxville. She was a respected nurse, married to the county prosecutor. In Tennessee, they are called district attorneys general. The couple, who married in 1970, lived with their 3 children on the Dossett family farm just west of town. In 1992, Mr. Dossett was found dead in their corral. His wife said cattle had trampled him, and the death was ruled an agricultural accident. Mr. Dossett had been in the late stages of terminal cancer, and Ms. Dossett Leath told the authorities that she had helped him out to the barn to feed the cattle at his request. Randall E. Pedigo, the medical examiner at the time, said the notion of a domestic cattle stampede raised suspicions but about insurance fraud, not murder. There was a lot of talk and speculation at the time that it was to make it look like an accidental death, to collect double indemnity, said Mr. Pedigo, who lost his medical license after being convicted of sedating and sexually molesting minors in 1995. Some people even speculated that it might have been Ed Dossett's idea. Mr. Pedigo said that prosecutors in Mr. Dossett's office resisted his performing an autopsy, that he felt pressured to rule the death an accident, and that he had a policy of erring on the side of the family in cases where a judgment call was required. He persuaded Ms. Dossett that the insurance company would need an autopsy, and she consented. Mr. Pedigo said he found traumatic injuries consistent with trampling and a hoofprint in the middle of the bib of Mr. Dossett's overalls. However, when the current medical examiner, Dr. Darinka Mileosnik-Polchin, reviewed the file as part of the Leath investigation, she found that those injuries were not life-threatening. Instead, Dr. Mileosnik-Polchin said, Mr. Dossett's morphine level was so extraordinarily high it is unlikely that any human could function in an ambulatory manner or continue to live. In 2006, Ms. Dossett Leath was indicted in his death, charged with administering an overdose of morphine. 6 months after Mr. Dossett's death, his widow married his friend and neighbor David Leath. Friends say the couple was happy, at least at first. He built her a greenhouse and she bought him a custom truck with a matching horse trailer. 2 years later, Ms. Dossett Leath's 11-year-old son was killed in an auto accident. Her 15-year-old daughter was the driver. Not long after that, according to court records and newspaper accounts, Ms. Dossett Leath learned that her dead husband might have had another son with a woman who worked in his office. Amid a divorce, the woman told her husband, Steve Walker, that one of their 2 sons was fathered by Mr. Dossett, and he said Ms. Dossett Leath. Ms. Dossett Leath soon lured Mr. Walker to a barn on the farm, telling him she had found some papers related to the child. Once there, she opened fire on him and chased him across the hayfields until she ran out of ammunition. According to Mr. Walker's statement to the police, she said she would kill him and the child's mother and raise the child herself. Ms. Dossett Leath was charged with attempted murder, but pleaded guilty to a lesser charge and did 6 years of diversion, a form of probation. Then the charge was expunged. Friends say it was only months after Ms. Dossett Leath completed her sentence that Mr. Leath was found dead. He had signed deeds and a will, now missing, ensuring that Ms. Dossett Leath would inherit all the couple's property. At the trial, her defense lawyers argued that the victim killed himself, offering evidence that he was depressed and that his health was declining. But a firearms expert for the prosecution said that of 3 shots fired from the gun that day, it had been the second one that killed Mr. Leath. Ms. Dossett Leath's lawyer, James A.H. Bell, said that his client had loved her husband and that there was no way she would have killed him. If you believe Miss Raynella murdered him, Mr. Bell said, you have to believe she is nothing but a serpent of Satan. Only one juror declined to convict her in the first trial, Raynella Dossett Leath on retrial for second husband's murder. Raynella Dossett Leath is on trial for the second time for the murder of her second husband. Raynella is accused of shooting David Leath in the head on March 13, 2003, in their bedroom. Her first trial for his death ended with a hung jury in March 2009. Raynella pleaded not guilty after the indictment was read Tuesday morning. The evidence in this case and the theories by the state and prosecution about what happened remain the same as in the first trial. In his opening statement, prosecutor Richard Fisher played a part in Raynella's 911 call from the night of David's death. Then he explained why he believes David was murdered rather than committing suicide. Fisher said 3 shots were fired, and the second shot killed David instantly. He told the jury David was also drugged with a combination similar to what's used for patients having surgery. Fisher argued that Raynella carefully contrived David's murder. In his opening argument, defense attorney Jim Bell said the jury didn't hear the entire 911 call made to report David's shooting, so they don't know the whole story. Bell played the 911 call, although the voice of his investigator could also be heard. He said it was inadvertently included. Bell also told the jurors they may not hear from defense witnesses or Raynella. The state called Knox County Sheriff Sergeant David Amburn to the stand. He was one of the first officers to arrive at the scene. At David and Raynella's home, Amburn said Raynella was lying in the front yard, not moving. He said when he nudged her with his foot, she started to cry and told the officers, "Help him! Help him! He's been shot." After the gun was introduced into evidence, the jury was allowed to examine it. Judge Richard Baumgartner excused one juror for family reasons before opening arguments. The jury now consists of 12 jurors and 2 alternates. They were seated last week and are sequestered for the retrial. Leath is also expected to stand trial in August for the 1992 death of her first husband, former Knox County District Attorney Ed Dossett. The cause of Dossett's death was initially believed to be accidental when cattle trampled him. But prosecutors are now trying to prove Dossett, who had cancer, died from an intentional overdose of morphine.